Hey guys, this is Nerd Taku Podcast. I'm your host, Eli. With me is my co-host, Ben.
Hey guys, how's it going?
This is another movie review. We watched it so you don't have to. This week, we are reviewing Insomnia. Spoiler warnings ahead. Ben, my guy, are there spoilers in this episode?
Yes, sir. You better believe it.
Director is Christopher Nolan. Main cast, Al Pacino, Robin Williams, Hilary Swank, Martin Donovan. This film, when we honestly sit down and watch this film, overall, it was an okay experience to me. There's certain parts that I could not get over. There's certain things, aspects of this film that made me want to go, what the hell is going on? Overall, the story was not bad, but it was like, it made me go, why? In like the choices of what the director did and the choices in the acting and the style and the tropes. I just felt like, why?
I kind of enjoyed the story, actually. I think it was pretty well done. Being only Christopher Nolan's, third project? I don't think the directing style was too bad, but some of the acting was kind of, let's just say, lackluster.
This film has not aged well. You can see it. You can see this film has not aged well. But it's still one of those films that people recommend to watch.
It's got a 7.2 on IMDb.
Yeah, and it did win one award for the directing, and it's been nominated 11 times by other like award shows internationally. People do like this film. We can't say that this film is absolute hot garbage. We can say that certain aspects of it we did not enjoy. The synopsis to this film is two Los Angeles homicide detectives are dispatched to a northern town where the sun doesn't set to investigate the methodical murder of a local teen. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory itself. Like, that's the roughest way of saying that's what the film is. If you actually watch the trailer, that basically kind of tries to explain that's it. And the trailer kind of gives it away, like what the kind of the film is.
It gives everything away. It tells you who the killer is. He even states, you only know I killed this person because I told you. Al Pacino knows throughout this whole film who the killer is. Well, not the whole film. It's probably about 40 minutes into the film or something, but he knows.
This whole film is more about the mystery between these two guys, the loose cannon dirty cop versus the murderer. Like, are we able to keep our secrets and work together to get out of this situation together? It kind of worked. I felt like the ending was a little cliche. You knew it was going to happen. It was very predictable, in my opinion. And it was very obvious. It was what had to happen happened because no one was going to come out of this. No one was going to come out of this alive.
Except Ellie. She made it alive.
Ellie was the only character who I thought consistently kept themselves in good integrity. All these people were just corrupt, and she was the only one that kept her integrity, and that's what I loved. So my final rating was a 6.75.
My final rating for this was an 8.5.
Let's get starting on this list. Plot.
I gave that a 1.
I gave it a 0.75.
I feel like the plot was actually pretty good. The way it went through was these two detectives go to Alaska during the summer where it's always sunny, and they're trying to figure out who killed this teen girl. Throughout the whole process of this, the main detective, Will Dormer, he's corrupt, or he planted evidence in a former investigation because he knew this guy was guilty and he didn't want him to get out. And so he planted evidence to get him caught. There's an IA investigation on Dormer throughout this whole film. His partner, Hap, is part of this IA investigation. He's willing to talk to IA. That makes Dormer pretty angry. When they're chasing Finch through the fogged forest, he ends up pulling a gun and taking a shot who he thinks is Finch, but turns out to be Hap, and Hap ends up dying. So this causes his brain not to work properly. He starts to see visions, and he's decreasing in mentality because number one, he shot Hap, and number two, he can't sleep. And he doesn't sleep for 6 days straight throughout this film. And he's just going nuts. When he meets with Finch, Finch basically tells him, "This is where I want to meet you. Let's meet there." And they come up with some plan, but he doesn't really want to follow this plan. He's just trying to get Finch caught and save his skin for having shot Hap, because Dormer is now framing Finch for it, even though Finch didn't pull the trigger. Dormer did. Throughout this film, Dormer is trying to find a way to get Finch caught without Finch knowing that he's trying to get him caught. So he hides his gun in his apartment, and he does a bunch of stuff to try to get Finch caught, and it doesn't end up working in his favor. By the end of the film, Dormer is so out of it that Finch is basically getting away with everything, and Ellie finds out that Dormer actually did shoot Hap and goes to Finch's place to talk with Finch, because she finds out that Finch is the one killed this girl. So she goes there. They end up having a conversation, and Finch knows that Ellie knows, so he knocks her out, and then Dormer shows up, and they get into a firefight, and in the end, Dormer and Finch kill each other. It's a lot to process, but I thought the plot ran really smoothly. Dormer was going insane. Ellie was trying to help him through. He wanted to frame Finch. Didn't work. End up killing each other. Pretty good, straightforward plot. And it built on itself throughout really well, enough to keep you invested in the story, even though some other aspects kind of dropped your interest.
When initially they get to the town, it's intriguing. It's very, very exciting to see, like, oh, there's a mystery of who killed this girl and what are they going to find for the evidence. And then I think it was about 20, 30 minutes in, where Dormer is having this trouble sleeping. He's starting to like have these issues where he can't sleep. Get a sleeping mask, man. Like, get something to help you. I just felt personally there was like ways that he could have figured out.
Well, I get that. I felt that as well. I think one of the main reasons he really couldn't sleep was because of how he was feeling after having shot Hap.
The one thing I hated was the trope, the whole sneaking up on Finch at his place. The honest trope of everyone's getting ready sneakily. Where did the dude get a megaphone?
I have no idea. That's one thing I was wondering too. The megaphone going off was just like, seriously.
Yeah, no, that was the thing. That's what got me on the plot, was little things like, oh, the coincidental dead dog. Oh, we're gonna shove a dog right here. Oh, we're gonna shoot the dog. No one hears the shot. No one in the middle of town. He shoots his gun. Just happenstance. Just shoots it, and all of a sudden, no one goes, what was that?
You got to remember, this is Alaska, and in Alaska, guns going off is no unordinary thing. There are hunters everywhere, and you can hunt just outside of city limits, but they could have just thought that the shot came from outside city limits because there was nobody on the road or in the alleyway where he shot the dog to plant the bullet.
Yeah, but it's still, it's one of those things where it's like, it was convenient. It was very convenient that was there. It was probably because the director tried to figure out the way to make it work, and it worked well because it kept the story going. I'm not saying, like, I'm talking about the tropes that they used to try to progress the story made me go, okay, that was lame. And then like at the end where the obvious, both of them die. No one's coming out of this because they're both corrupt. They're both in the end evil, and they had to pay the price for their doings. And Dormer was trying his best to redeem himself from the whole mishap, but he was so sleep deprived. He was having struggles focusing. In the end, they both died. And I just felt like the little tropes, the little coincidence things where it was just there to help the story move just wasn't my thing.
I get it.
So I gave it a 0.75. Acting.
0.75.
0.5. Al Pacino bothered me to the core in so many ways, to the point where I paused the film and walked away. I felt his acting. I loved him in Godfather. Don't get me wrong. I love him in Godfather. I love him in Scarface. But this acting, I understand he was acting like an insomnia man, but it was more, I felt he wasn't really there in the character in my opinion. I just didn't feel him there. He was like, some moments he would just go rage, 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 and then like sit and calm. he would mumble, and then he would act completely normal. And then the insomnia would hit like 10 times harder, and then he'd be back to normal. And then by the end, back and forth, the insomnia is getting him. And I just didn't like Al Pacino. I didn't like Al Pacino at all in this role. He wasn't my thing. Robin Williams killed it. That's what kept the 0.5, was Robin Williams and Hilary Swank kept it so well. I like those two. They really did well with their roles, but Al Pacino made me almost walk away from this film. If I wasn't doing this for this podcast, I would have walked away.
See, I have a different opinion. Not so much that I don't agree with you with Al Pacino. It was rough. I never paused the film. I actually just got through it. I thoroughly enjoyed watching this film. I really did. It's just Al Pacino's acting did bother me. He did really well the first half of the film, but as he's getting into this sleep deprivation and mentality state of going all over the place, I didn't enjoy his portrayal of that. But I do have to agree with you with Robin Williams. He made the film. It was an outstanding performance. He played a character so well. It was his anger at the girl who started laughing at him for giving his feelings to her, and he ended up accidentally, in quotations, accidentally killing this girl. But throughout the film, he's showing that he really is a crime writer, and he knows process. He knows how the police run about their investigations, and that's how he was able to hide so well. And just getting into Finch's head, the way Robin Williams portrays him, is so captivating. I absolutely loved it. Hilary Swank did an amazing job. I loved her as Ellie. She was the side character who got put onto this case, who, as she's progressing through this, is trying to figure out all this different information and getting little tips from Al Pacino, from Will Dormer, to continue her investigation, because she then gets put on the shooting of Hap while Dormer is investigating Finch, and she submits her report to Dormer, and Dormer knows that it's not right. For some reason, he says, instead of signing off on it, he says, remember, this is your name on the report, so make sure it's right. And then she gets even more invested in the investigation. I loved how dedicated Hilary Swank got into Ellie Burr and made her character, her acting was awesome. The only reason I dropped acting was because of Al Pacino, but Robin Williams and Hilary Swank did amazing, kept that acting up real well, so I gave it a 0.75.
I agree with you with Robin Williams and Hilary Swank. And I felt like with Martin Hap, I felt in the beginning the most confrontational when they were sitting at that dinner at the hotel. I just felt super like uncomfortable with it. Oh, they're getting at it. And then Al Pacino walks away and it's like, there's nothing resolved. Okay.
No, they never resolved anything. That's another reason why Dormer was so distraught, because he killed Hap and there was no resolution.
Character development.
That one I only gave a 0.5.
I gave it a 0.5. There's nothing really there. Ellie's the most developed character in this whole story. When you look at it, she grew from a fangirl of Dormer's, and it's like, I studied you at the academy in biggest case ever, to she's becoming her own major detective. And she figured it out that Dormer killed Hap. That one scene where she was about to throw the evidence away that Dormer did it, I was like, she grew from like being this straight cop, and she was going to willingly give up her biggest evidence to keep his integrity. And I'm like, ooh, so good, so good. But then after that, after Ellie, there's nothing else. Rob Williams, Finch, and Dormer did not develop at all. They both just stayed the same. They were still crooked. Al Pacino's character Dormer had a little bit of, he wanted a little bit of like solace. He wanted to like give back and like make things right at the end, but it wasn't enough to make a difference in his character.
I completely agree. Hilary Swank's Ellie, the best development throughout. Like you said, she was a fangirl of Dormer, 100%. She's going through this process of detective work, and then she gets put on the case of Hap and wants to just give this report, and then Dormer says, what he says, this is your name on the report, and she deep dives into this investigation to try to figure out what happened to Hap. And then she finds out that Dormer couldn't have been where he said he was when the shot went off, and that's where she finds the casing. And then she's about to toss the evidence, saying she's full-hearted, Dormer did this, I need to let people know. And then Dormer's dying, and she's like, you know what, no one needs to know. And she's about to throw it, and Dormer's like, no, people do need to know. She puts it back in the bag and submits her report. Walter Finch had absolutely no development. He stayed the same all the way throughout the film because he is who he is. He's the killer. All he wanted to do was get away with it. Dormer, he digressed. He started high, and then it was just digression throughout. He met with Finch. He tried to frame Finch. He killed Hap, doing all this work to make it look like Finch had shot Hap. It wasn't until the end where he talks to the hostess at the hotel about his past, about the former case where he had planted evidence, and then decides to go find Finch and finish it, where he had the slightest bit of character development there at the end and told Ellie not to throw the casing. And then Hap died before he could even develop, so there was nothing there. So really all of the development went into Hilary Swank's Ellie Burr.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. Sound and music.
I gave that a 0.75.
I gave it a 0.75. I just felt like the music was it was just very ambiance feeling. It was very like mid-toned. You felt like the music was just da, 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 da. Like there's really nothing much there. There wasn't really a lot of sounds that stuck out to me. It was more just like it was just crisp with some of the sound effects, like with the gunshots and just the overall nature scenery of sounds where you could hear the actual nature. Because in Alaska, you hear a lot of nature. You hear a lot out there. And I just like the fact that they did those sounds. But the music overall, I felt it was okay. It wasn't the greatest in the world, but I felt like it worked for the film that it was in.
It was kind of somber throughout, and then the intense parts kind of got intense. So the music was really good. There wasn't a whole lot of sound. One thing that really, really got to me was the clanking and muted sounds when Dormer is chasing Finch and he falls into the water underneath the logs and he's trying to find his way out of the water. And you just hear the logs going, poof, 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 but it's muted because he's underwater. That sound, I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm actually with Dormer right now under the water. It's just like your ears are being plugged with water and you get that muted sound when you're swimming, and all you can hear is just the wood going as it's clanking together. I really enjoyed that. But overall, there wasn't a whole lot of music that set the mood other than more intense parts. So really the biggest thumbs up I can give is to the water scene.
The composer for this film was David Julian. He's done some pretty good work in his later years. He is well known. He's known for Cabin in the Woods, The Prestige, Insomnia, and Minato. So I could see how you liked his stuff because he did really well in those films in his later years. And like you said, the log scene where he fell, that was super intense. And with the music and the sounds of the clashing of the logs, it was so good. That was one of my favorite parts in the film where he's like, is he going to get out? Is he going to make it? Is he going to die here?
And as I was watching that scene, I ended up holding my breath, literally. And it wasn't until he got out that I'm like, what the hell? Why was I doing that?
We always try that as an adult or a kid where we hold our breath in an underwater scene to see if we could have done it.
But that's the thing. I wasn't doing it on purpose. I ended up just holding my breath and not breathing while he's trying to get out of this water with all these logs on top of him.
You did it naturally in the brain.
Apparently so.
Okay, cinematography.
I gave that a 0.75.
Gave it a 0.75. I was getting really annoyed with the shutter back and forth clips.
Oh my God, yes.
It was getting so annoying. Christopher Nolan, I was wondering, why are you letting the cinematographer do these types of shots? Because our cinematographer for this film was Wally, I can't even pronounce it, Pfister. I can't even pronounce his last name. It's Pfister. Pfister or Pfister. I think it's Pfister with a P silent. But I don't understand what he was doing. It was not making sense with the shutters changing back and forth, making him feel like, oh, the memories are haunting me. And I was so so destroyed by it. I'm like, okay, stop. This is getting annoying. You did way too many of them, but I did like his panning shots of like the car driving on the road. Those shots from the distance of the car driving in like the big wilderness scenes. They were good, but overall, that Shutter was just too much.
I enjoyed the panning that came from when they're first flying in and zooms out from the plane and you see all of the beauty of that is this town in Alaska and the blue skies. The mountain range is blue in the background and how fresh the water looks. And then there's just this little town that they're flying towards. That was absolutely beautiful. Like you said, the cars driving and it's the continual panning. You saw a kind of back and forth between Dormer and Finch when they were talking on the ferry. Oh, and I really liked again the scene when he was underwater. The camera was underneath Al Pacino and you could see him struggling trying to find his way out, and all he's doing is knocking his hands on this wood and the bubbles coming out of his mouth. You felt like you were under this water, and I really enjoyed that. He did a good job on that.
Yes, I agree with you there. Directing.
I gave that a 1.
I gave it a 0.75.
I felt like having been Christopher Nolan's early projects, like what he does now is absolutely phenomenal. But having been an earlier project, I think it was his third project.
So let me just say he did 3 shorts, but this was his third major film.
Okay. I felt like he did a really good job. He saw what he wanted and he delivered it. I can understand what you're saying with the whole convenience part of stuff that just happened to be there, like the dog and the fog, things like that. But I feel like that more goes into, well, it does go into directing, but I think that he wanted to let the story progress enough that just putting these little tropes in will help push the story forward. So I understand why you didn't really like it, but I thought that being one of his earliest projects, I think he did really well.
Yes, I thought he did well for being a third film in his repertoire in motion picture films. I just like you said, the tropes kind of got me. It was more of the fact that it felt like he was grasping really quickly at simple tropes. I was hoping for like more creative tropes, but I understand it was his third film. But overall, I just really, those tropes really hurt what he was doing, in my opinion. I did like his movie Minato. It's a film about this guy who wakes up and he has notes written all over him to remember everything. He's trying to I think solve a mystery of what happened to him. And that was a good film. But he did some of the same tropes in that film as that one, and it was just early work. I did like it, but the tropes really did get to me by the end of the film.
Makes sense.
Attraction.
0.75.
0.5.
There wasn't a lot. I can be honest with that. There wasn't a lot, but with the pan shots that the cinematographer had done, and they actually explored this entire town and even the next town over when he went to go find Finch's apartment. Everything was shown. They were outside for basically the entire film. There were few shots indoors. They went onto the ferry. They were on the plane. He was underwater. They were running through a logging facility. They went to the place where they were going to first set Finch up and try to catch him. They were just all over this town, and I absolutely loved it. And the fact that it was always sunny gave light to the project. So it made it so that this is an intense film, but they showed you do not need dark hues to make a good, intense film. And I loved it. So I had to give it a 0.75. The downfall was the acting. It was really Al Pacino's acting. That's what made the attraction go down.
For me, the acting was the major downfall to this whole attraction. Like I said earlier, I paused the film and walked away. I walked away from it because I was getting so frustrated. But like you said, the scenery shots, it was open. It was very beautiful. Seriously, there was no dark. Maybe the darkest part was probably him being in his room covering everything up. That was, it was breathtaking. It was so good to see a fresh take on going everywhere in a small town. It wasn't like stuck in 6 buildings. They went everywhere. They explored everywhere in this northern Alaskan town, and it was great. I loved it. I love the fact that they talked about all the areas that they went to, like the ferry, and they showed everything. The logging part was my favorite because it was like you saw Robin Williams' character just booking it on there. He's booking it across. I'm like, he's lived there. He knows how to run on logs. He knows what to do. And you could see Al Pacino's character, Dormer, going, oh, I'm struggling. And I felt, but you could see, like, it was so good. But Al Pacino, like I said, for me, killed it. It made it so I couldn't watch it. I stopped, I think, in an hour and 15 minutes. I was like, I can't do this right now. I gotta stop. I gotta take a break. He's irritating me so bad. And I like some of Al Pacino's other work. He did 88 Minutes, that movie. He did that years later, but it was like he was a detective again, and it was actually pretty good film that I liked him in. This one, nah, the attraction died. Dialogue.
I gave that a 1.
I gave it a 0.75.
I really enjoyed the dialogue throughout this. It was delivered really well. I'm just going to go through some quotes here. I loved the banter at the beginning when they first get there and they go to Kay's apartment, the girl's apartment, and Dormer's like, I want to go to school. I want to talk to the kids. I want to get all this done. And Ellie's like, it's 10. And Dormer, yeah, and at night. Right. I knew that. So when's it get dark around here? It doesn't. Not this time of year. I knew that. You didn't know that, Hap? It was funny. It was great banter right there. Or when they're driving, when they're actually going to the school, and Ellie talks about misdemeanors and stuff, and Dormer's like, you shouldn't knock misdemeanors. It's all about small stuff. You know, small lies, small mistakes. People give themselves away, same in misdemeanors as they do in murders. It's just human nature. Wow, it's true. Most people can't hold a proper lie for very long. It doesn't happen. You're gonna mess up. There's a scene on the ferry where Dormer is talking with Walter, or Finch, whatever you want to call him. Walter says, I'm pretty good at hiding the evidence. That's my job. I write these kind of novels. And Dormer's like, yeah, except for the backpack. And that's where Walter says, well, under pressure, you don't always see the wood for the trees. You, for one, should have figured that one out by now. And that's him talking about Dormer doing what he can to hide the evidence for killing Hap and framing Finch. And Finch knows that that's what he's trying to do, and it's not working. One thing that really hit me was Walter explaining how he ended up accidentally, in quotations, killing Kay. That gave me freaking goosebumps. I was just like, Robin Williams, you're kind of scary. I don't want to. Yeah, no, you're not. I don't like that. I don't like that. But the one line that really, really, really got me, like I could feel it, was Dormer gets shot and Ellie is trying to help him. And he says, let me sleep. Just let me sleep. It's like he's finally getting the sleep, in quotations, that he's been wanting, because he's going to die, and he knows he's going to die, and he doesn't care. He feels like he deserves it for killing Hap and kind of being corrupt, and it just puts the icing right on the cake. There are so many good quotes throughout this film that if I wanted to quote them all, I would just end up quoting the entire goddamn script. I thought the dialogue was outstanding.
I agree with you. There are a lot of good lines in this film that stuck out very well. There was a line at the end of the film, right after, I think it was during the same time when Dormer was saying, let me sleep, let me sleep. Elliot was about to throw the evidence away. Dormer goes, don't do that. Why? Keep your integrity. Oh, that was such a good quote. That's what got me. It was like, that quote was like, he wanted her to be a better person than him. I think throughout the film, there was just so much dialogue that was said that was just so good. I thought the witty banter when they were talking to the boyfriend in the classroom was really good, where Harp and him were just going back and forth, like just tackling him like, hey, where were you? I don't know. No. And then when the student starts talking and starts freaking out saying, you don't know who the fuck I am. You don't know who the fuck I've been through. You don't know me. And then Al Pacino grabs his desk and basically says, I don't care. We're trying to find who killed Kate.
What made you knock it to a 0.75?
I felt, I'm thinking of actually raising it to a 1. I'm actually thinking of raising it to a 1 because there's just so much there that was like, there's great substance. So I'm actually going to raise it to a 1.
Yeah, like I said, if I wanted to put every good quote in here, I would end up putting the entire fucking script on this podcast. There were so many good quotes.
Yes. Scenery.
I gave that a 1.
I gave it a 1. That was my only one besides me changing to that dialogue that I gave naturally.
I had to. It was so beautiful. Like I said in Attraction, the plane coming into the city, it's just absolutely gorgeous. The entire scene is like it's a painting of beauty. Just the blue mountains, the sky, the clouds above, the sun shining, the absolute bright blue water, and just this little town where they're going to. So gorgeous. And then they're always outside. The fog scene, I feel like was a trope, but it was also so good. You literally couldn't see anything. And that's why he ended up shooting Hap thinking it was Finch. But there was so much scenery everywhere because they were always outside. That the ferry scene was just beautiful as they're talking on the edge of the ferry, and it's panning between the both of them, and you can still see the outside scenery. You can still see all the gorgeous mountains and the water. And then when he's running through the logging area, it catches Alaska's beauty so well. I just loved it.
I love the fact that they shot this in Alaska. This film was so good in this town. I love the fact that they did that, where they brought this whole story around this Alaskan town, and it was just so beautiful. It was during the summer months, summer months, where it's always sunny, always light out. And I love the shots they did. The shot of that hotel with the sunset coming close to it. It was so good. I love the fact at the end of the film, when the cars are driving, you just see the glacier, you see the fields, you see the water. I loved when the plane came in and you saw the town. It was so beautiful and mesmerizing. All the small things were so good, and the sceneries were just so clean. And that's what kept it like really good throughout the film, was that they shot in beautiful sceneries. And you wouldn't think a small town would have a crime like this. So bringing this story to this scenery just made it so much more like breathtaking and awe-inspiring. Recommended.
I gave that a 1, but I think I'm going to drop it to a 0.75 just because of Al's acting. I thoroughly enjoyed this film, and I would honestly recommend this to anyone. I didn't see too much of a reason to say, no, don't watch this film, except for you have to kind of get through Pacino's forceful acting. But other than that, I felt like it's a film that most people would enjoy. I really, really liked it, but I will drop it to a 0.75 just because of that.
I gave it a 0.5, and it was because of certain things. It was because of the tropes. It was because of Al Pacino. Like once I had to pause the film, the recommended drop, it was going to be a 0.75, but I dropped to a 0.5. This film, yes, most people who like mystery dramas will find some joy in this film. They'll find the icing on the cake to it. They'll find the diamond in the rough, and they'll really enjoy it. The dialogue is really good. The script for this film is by far the best about it, with the scenery. And yeah, no, Al Pacino's Dormer was just, it was rough. It made me just not enjoy my time with him. Everyone else made the movie enjoyable. It was just him that I did not enjoy. It was just so rough for me. So that's why I'm going to say most people will enjoy it. But for me, Al Pacino was just too much.
Understandable.
Overall, I gave it a 7.
My final rating was an 8.25.
Overall, the scenery in this film, the dialogue was very captivating, very beautiful, mesmerizing. The lines in this film were just so thought-provoking, and you just had to keep watching to see where it was going. The acting could have been better with the main character. It was lackluster, very, very bland by mid to end. In the beginning, it was fine, but mid to end, it was bad. Overall, we do recommend this for majority of people, but we have our own personal reasons why we don't enjoy it.
Overall, I would say it was much better than the trailer portrayed. That was an experience, trailer in and of itself, but
the trailer was such an experience. It was so good. That experience, bring him to a town.
I loved it. But I felt that the cinematic tones and ambiances were set really well throughout the film. I enjoyed the dialogue so much so that I wish I could have just quoted the whole film to you, because I got to tell you, there are some real good ones in there, real dingers, and I absolutely loved it. Al Pacino's acting could have done better. I've seen him do better, and I know he can do better, so I would have to say that's what takes the attraction away, but to make up for it, you can just feel the psycho and creepiness within Robin Williams' character, and that boosts, that really brings up my overall recommend. Yeah, but overall, I would highly recommend this to anyone looking for a good crime drama. It was actually really well done, and I feel that most people would actually really enjoy this film. I really do.
As we're wrapping up this episode, we're going to be talking about next week's episode. We're doing a TV series next week called The Bear. It's on FX. It came out in 2022, and it's from the trailer. What'd you feel, Ben? What'd you feel? It wasn't that long of a trailer.
No, it wasn't. And I've heard a lot of great things about this show. Going into this, I was like, yeah, I think I'll really enjoy that. It's one that I was putting on my watch list anyway, so why not? And having watched this trailer, it looks to me like it's a small-time chef trying to make his restaurant into a booming light in this little area of New York. I felt like he was making this place a home for all of his staff. It felt warm, felt like I would want to work there if I was going to become a chef and work into the cooking career. So overall, I gave this a 7.5 because I feel like it's just this chef trying to make it in this big world.
I love the main character in this series, Jeremy Allen White. He played Philip in Shameless, and Jeremy is just such a great actor throughout the whole series. So when I saw the trailer, I was like, ooh, he's gonna be in this. It looks good. It looks nice. I'm excited to see where this takes us. I'm actually hoping this becomes really good, so I'm giving it an 8.
All right.
So as we wrap up, I like to say thank you for everyone for tuning into this week's episode of the Nerdtaku Podcast. I am Eli. As always, I'm with my lovely co-host, Ben.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. We really love doing these, so tune in for next week's show, man. It's going to be great.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, share to all your friends, guys. We got many more episodes coming ahead. Go back and watch some of our previous episodes if you're new here. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in this week, and take care.
Thanks, guys.